This whole situation is kind of weird, isn't it? I'm the Crusher guy, but why do I care so much about Crushers? It's a question that I have been thinking about for a while, as it doesn't make much sense. It feels kind of random to have a core element of my channel and online personality being based around a single Arknights subclass. Now, I make videos about non-Crusher things, but I think it is quite easy to see that Crushers are at least somewhat of a focus on this channel, and it has become at least a little apparent that my passion for Crushers has expanded beyond my reach. Seems some people enjoy consuming 100 HP per second and immediately throwing anchors. It makes me very happy to see that what I've created had some kind of impact on the community. Perhaps I'm wrong though, and even if I didn't make content, people's attitudes towards Crushers would remain the same as it is now, but I'd like to believe I did make an impact. Crushers to me are kind of the antithesis to the meta. They aren't straightforward, the strongest of them aren't utterly busted, they don't auto-clear stages, but they are certainly powerful, you just have to know how to use them. They are heavily rewarding for those who enjoy them, but pointless to those who don't. Those who do care about the meta are probably the type of people to call the subclass flawed fundamentally. Of course, I don't believe that. I believe they're perfect just as they are, with a few exceptions of course, but nothing's perfect. It's a subclass that is, by design, meant to be experimented with. Their use cases are quite difficult to find at first and require a decent understanding of the subclass and its interactions to use properly. And understandably, this steep learning curve is difficult for some, and I'm sure has turned plenty of people off from the subclass. However, I think the existence of the subclass is representative of something very wholesome about Arknights. It's a subclass that is difficult to learn and by its own identity has zero defense. Most of the time. Really can't find something like Crushers in other gacha games, primarily because most gacha slop doesn't really care about experimental unit design. Other gacha games want to push power level in order to make units more marketable, but in Arknights we see 5 stars exist on a pretty well-made standard of balance, even modern ones, with only the occasional 6 star really breaking the mold in terms of power level. I think Hypergryph does care about the subclass and what it is meant to do, and my main evidence for that is their modules. If they really wanted to just give in to the crowd, Crushers would have defense, but no, they have increased healing, because Hypergryph understands that being weak to what having low defense is weak to balances them out, but they don't want them to be incredibly difficult to heal like they are now. Because of that, it makes Crushers a sort of mascot of a gacha counterculture for me. A culture that doesn't want to soy over the new 6-star, gawk at fictional women being designed to be attractive, or to obsess over excessive account optimization. It's about playing a game and having fun playing that game. To me, I don't play Arknights because it's a gacha game. I play it because it's a game, and a good game at that. If anything, gacha holds it back from reaching its full potential. It's a well-crafted game that, yeah, with a few bugs here and there, has really fun gameplay with a lot of depth. If you can play through a large chunk of the game and have a great time without even rolling gacha, well then perhaps you have a good game on your hands. Enjoying Arknights as a game, rather than as a gacha game, makes a lot of what I say sound like nonsense to a lot of people who have given into this gacha culture. Subclass identity, player psychographics, game balance. It's a gacha game, who cares about any of that? Arknights is about obtaining overpowered waifus and beating stages with minimal effort. I'm an outsider looking in, I suppose, but I'm also infiltrating it. There's certainly a specific hype around Crushers that I feel I might be somewhat responsible for. Perhaps it's simply a meme to some, but knowing that there are people excited about Crushers for one reason or another does make me happy. It feels like I have made a difference in some way. Sadly though, I do feel people care more about Ulpianus as an Abyssal Hunter than as a Crusher, but whatever. Crushers are probably the most fun I've had in Arknights gameplay-wise because of their unique playstyle. This is entirely personal, so if you can't relate, I can't blame you, but Crushers have a kind of interesting risk-reward factor that I find to be really fun. They're fragile, but given the right use case and operator combos, they become incredibly explosive and really defensive. It's easy to misuse a Crusher, but if you can get over that steep learning curve, you end up with a really powerful group of operators that have a large multitude of use cases. Honestly, if you told Bloop a year ago that it would be difficult for him to play a stage without using a Crusher, he'd think you were insane. Weirdly though, this kind of playstyle isn't exclusive to Crushers, or Arknights. I find a very similar playstyle enjoyable in Magic the Gathering. I have 7 commander decks that I have played with in my local game store. 3 of those decks fall into what is known as Izzet Storm. Some of you have probably just thrown up in your mouth hearing that, and for that I would like to apologize for my deck's superiority. To those who don't know what I'm talking about, Izzet refers to the combination of the magic colors blue and red. Storm being all about playing loads and loads of cards every single turn. Now, what does this have to do with Crushers? Well, like Crushers, it's a fragile playstyle. Destroy or counter my combo piece and I'm fresh out of luck. But if I can play around that, if I can go off and do my crazy combo Storm turn, I get that insane explosive feeling you get after Quartz crashes down for 2.7k damage per attack with her S1. It's satisfying to go against the odds, prepare against precautions, and to take advantage of the sheer power you have access to. Crushers are the extreme of minimizing downside and maximizing upside, and as a self-proclaimed Johnny, that is something that I find to be really enjoyable. It's representative of me as a player to manage those downsides and abuse those upsides. Speaking of, I think that is a big part of why I love Arknights so much. I see myself as a Johnny, which, if you don't know, is a Magic the Gathering player psychographic created by the designers to describe archetypes of their players. I made a whole video about this and how it can relate to Arknights playstyles. But in short, Johnnies get their enjoyment out of how deck building and squad building represents them. They see the game as an extension of themselves, and how they play in the game shows off how they are as people. They want to express themselves through the game. Crushers are that expression for me. They are an extension of myself. Crushers made my channel grow, which led me to meeting new people and making new friends. Crushers are a sigil of standing against Gacha slop and the toxic and unhealthy mindset it can create. Crushers stand for some element of design integrity. Crushers test my skills and prove to me at some extent that I can learn, I can adapt, I can get better at Arknights. My passion for Crushers is the product of loads of different factors, but ultimately, it's just who I am. And well, there is another odd coincidence that I do find to be quite cool. All 4 Crushers are quite similar as characters, aren't they? No other subclass really has a shared archetype of character between all players in that subclass. Crushers are typically stoic, strong, independent, and disciplined. It's a set of principles and philosophies that I do personally feel strong about, simply due to past experiences and personal values. And it's odd that out of all of the subclasses, this is the one that has the cohesive character identity that I just so happen to strongly idolize. Perhaps there is something more to Crushers that we just don't understand. They're a relatively new subclass too. Apparently Quartz was added to the game 3 months before I started my account, and Wind Chimes came out the week I started playing. So many coincidences, and so many ways to be attached to such a simple subclass. Perhaps it's fate, or just the human ability to distinguish patterns, but that's a lame answer. It's something I do feel attached to in both a material and immaterial sense. I don't know if any of you have your Crusher or whatever, but I hope you do. Something that you can cling to, something that means a lot to you, and something that drives you to better yourself day in and day out. It ain't just about the feeling of pleasure, but the satisfaction of something greater, something beyond simple satisfactions. Remember, there are no bad operators, just amazing ones. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I love you all.
この件が重くないかって？重いに決まってるさ。だが、私には必要な重さだ。仲間を守るためにも、やっと得られたこの自由を守り抜くためにもな。それらの重みを背に感じることで、より力強く剣を振り下ろせる。もちろん、怪我した時は杖にも使えるよ。